This is the Zemar Podcast. Elite Benefits of America helps small and mid-sized companies with their health insurance programs. And now, your host, Butch Zemar.
In 2025, businesses are still looking for ways to cut their healthcare costs on their benefit spending inside the company. It's still a struggle. No matter how many years that go by, and even the number of years that I've been talking about on the podcast, even our clients are still struggling with it. Not saying that we're not providing the strategies, but it's one of the biggest increases of all line items on an expense sheet. And so it's just a known fact. But businesses definitely need to start thinking things differently. I can't tell you how many companies that we run across, and they're still doing the status quo way. And when I mean by status quo, everything's the same. Nothing ever changes. In the movie Big Hero 6, there's a little brother in there that wanted to get into the school program, and I think the big brother was in it. In order to do it, they had to create a project to prove their worth to get into the program. A lot of colleges are doing, I guess, that now. They want you to have certain projects related to the field that you're trying to go into in the area of study that the school is providing. So the project definitely needs to be selected by the judges, and it has to be accepted by the program in order to allow you to go to that school. In Big Hero 6, that is. The kid struggled with ideas, kept writing and scribbling on paper, throwing it away, and never got anywhere, right? And so, but prior to this, the kid built robots, and he used to fight with them, and he used to have a remote control. That wasn't enough to get in because it's already been done. It wasn't exciting. It's something they needed something unique. So he struggled with this for a while. So then his big brother came in his room to offer a hand, but in the big brother way. So he lifts him up, throws him over his shoulders, upside down, with his, the little guy's face facing away from his brother, and his brother's holding him from his ankles. And they're just dancing around. And the big brother starts to shout out, says, you just got to look at things from a different angle. And at that moment, he spotted his robot that he built, and he came up with this idea. So what's unique about this robot he built was it was magnets, and he controlled it with a remote control, and he was able to fight with magnets. That was his robot. But he needed to come up with something more clever. And so he came up with this idea that he could control these magnets by his mind, basically thinking about what he wants the magnets to do. And it's kind of cool. You should watch the movie. There's a lot more to the story, but the story is pretty interesting how they came up with this. So when businesses get this tunnel vision, they feel like they can't get things to work their way. They struggle. It's kind of like the kid writing on a piece of paper, scribbling, and not getting new ideas. It happens every year. Brokers do this all the time too. Brokers do it for other reasons too. They don't want to move. They don't want to change. The average age in our industry is more senior and has difficulty trying to understand technology and innovation and things that have been around for 40 years, but they don't want to make a change. And especially because 40 years ago, it wasn't as common as it is today, especially with employers looking for different things. So you have to look at things from a different angle. One thing for sure, you have to get out of their own way. So businesses get in their own way. So CFOs, HRs, owners, employers, brokers themselves, they get in their own way. You need to get out of the way. There's definitely things that we talk about on this podcast. We talk about with our clients, and we got to get away from past beliefs. It's almost like, sometimes when you're bringing new ideas to a table, you have to think with an open mind. So one example of this is scuba diving. And so I taught scuba for a number of years. If you never tried scuba, I would recommend it. But everybody that tries scuba, even in a class, you start on a 3-foot platform because most people are taller than 3 feet. They could stand up and still breathe regular air. They could take the regulator out of their mouth. And so there are times when you put your head underwater in 3 feet of water that people struggle with this idea that you can breathe underwater, and they never get the scuba dive because they keep fighting. It's the same thing happens in business when they're so tunnel vision. They have past beliefs. When you come in and you show them an idea and they're like, no, this doesn't work this way. It's the same concept where obviously there's millions of scuba divers all over the world, but somehow this one individual gets in the pool and 3 feet of water has heads on her only by 5 or 6 inches, and they can't believe that they're breathing underwater. So it's the same thing, same concept. Plus, if there was a new idea to save money, increase productivity, you think that they would already do it right now, right? Especially the brokers, they brought ideas to the table. You think they would do it, right? Are you sure? How do you know, right? Second opinions are valuable. It goes in healthcare when you get diagnosed with something, you want a second opinion because it may not be what people see. In business, right? There was a guy from GE, what's his last name? Welch. He had this thing as what's the reality of things? Because people would want to look at things and they have this perceived look at it, and then there's the reality of it. Sometimes you're looking at programs and you save money, but really you're just chasing tail, right? That's why some of these larger companies, when they're dealing with the right consultant, some of them will put performance-based bonuses in there, and I'm not for or against them. It depends on the contract and the initiatives and what's being done. But one of the reasons they do that is because they don't want to move you to a program and then you get an increase and then you're right back to where you started. The broker really didn't do anything. All they did was restart the clock and then it came back the next year. So what the bonus is there for is that if they perform and it's still what they expected based on a proposal the year prior, then they get a bonus. If it goes back up and it didn't work the way it was planned, no bonus, right? Brokers do this all the time. It's a big yo-yo. They switch plans. That's why every 2-3 years, these companies are switching to Aetna, Blue Cross, Humana. The list goes on. They just, every couple of years, they keep switching. Disgruntled employees, they're here we go again. We're just changing plans again. But where's the new idea? There isn't one. It's just changing carriers, changing deductibles, passing on more costs to the kitchen table of all your employees. So definitely get a second opinion, get a consultant in there. And then the other thing we need to start doing is bringing our accountant in the room, and whether it's a CFO or an outside accountant. You have to look at things from a different angle. There's things that you just don't see, and you need other people in the room. Some CFOs and accountants say, well, I don't understand healthcare, but they understand numbers, and we need somebody that understands numbers in the room. Business owners don't understand numbers like accountants do, so we need them there, especially if you're a company that's listening to this and there are over 100 employees, there's data and the numbers that you're missing for years. And we need somebody to look at those. We know where to find them too, but we need somebody on your team to see them too. It's not just us. And it's definitely from outside sources, right? That's why I'm saying second opinions, maybe get your accountant in there. You have to look at things. So it's kind of like, getting a new set of glasses, right? So like we go down the street, we get our eyes checked, right? And we pay somebody to tell us if we need to change our vision, right? We're not doing it ourselves. We're not looking at the TV and saying, hey, I need glasses or I need to get stronger prescriptions. We might say that, but when you go get checked, a professional might have a different opinion on it. Or you think you're fine and you go in and they said, we need to make your prescription stronger. You need readers or whatever it might be, right? You're paying somebody else to do this, right? And you couldn't see it to begin with, and they're telling you need this, right? So same thing goes with benefits, right? You need to get a different set of glasses to actually look at it. So you got to look at things from a different angle. The problem is that we keep wearing the same glasses over and over, and same with brokers. They keep looking at the same thing through the lens, and no fault of their own. It's just the way the industry evolved, and the industry teaches itself how to do business. And so, unfortunately, it's just the way it goes. There's outliers such as yourself, many other people across the country that are trying to take a different approach to this. It's nothing new. It's been around for 40 years. It's just a lot more relevant today than ever. I'm going to tie this to Olympic athletes. So years ago, I listened to an audiobook about mental toughness of athletes, professional athletes. There was a section in there on Olympic athletes. It was quite intriguing. I don't remember the name of the book. If you're that interested, reach out. I'll let you know what it is. But they talk about athletes breaking records, and they mention about a number of athletes in there, such as Roger Bannister with the 4-minute mile, to all the way to Michael Phelps winning the most number of gold medals, especially in swimming, all the stuff in between. But one of the areas that has not had broken records in a long, long time is the long jump. They just don't have it. The people are not breaking records. And the time frame I think this author was given was like 35 years, 40 years since the last time any of it was broken, whereas all other sports have been broken at least in the last decade, if not 2 decades, and this one was almost 4. So in this case study that he brings up, he's trying to pitch and saying that we need more people to break these records, and the best ones that do it are actually runners, sprinters specifically. because they contribute the training style to what the lawn jumpers need. But none of them have an interest of doing lawn jump. And there's many reasons for this. Injuries is definitely a part of it because they want to run. If they keep jumping and they hit it wrong, they can't run. And so whereas lawn jumpers, they just want to jump, and I don't know if they get hurt less often or more, but I know runners have they have a big sensitivity of injuries, so because they can't run at their performance then. But these runners would actually be a major contributor breaking records for lawn jump, but they just don't want to do it. It's just not something they want to do. And so, but part of that is some of these lawn jumpers need to start training as runners, and they need to look at it from a different angle. The same thing happens with brokers and CFOs in the rooms. They have to look at it from different angles because otherwise you're never going to break records internal. You're not going to increase performance with your employees because you're providing a better health plan. You're not going to save money and increase that cash flow so you can do more things inside the company. So let's go over a case study, right? So we had a company about 150 employees. We took over as a client probably 7 years ago, possibly. And the first year, all we did was redesign the plans. We stayed with the fully insured company. We redesigned some of the plan offerings. It actually created an incentive to actually employees to go to a lower cost plan, and it actually worked like a charm. Because our validation of this is when we switched to save money again, nobody wanted to give up their plan. So when we did this company saved nearly $100,000 in premium for over the next 12 months. And then we stayed with that carrier for a couple years, and then 3 years specifically. And so then we end up moving to what they call level funded plans. A self-funded chassis, they just spread out the risk over 12 months, and that way their premiums are level. And so when we did this, it saved them another $50,000. And so upon the renewal, right? And then compared to the renewal and the fully insured. So a year later with the new renewal, they still had a savings of $15,000 off the renewal. So they were running extremely well, and they got a credit. And so fantastic job. So it was in 5 years, it was nearly $300,000 in savings. So over the last year or so on this one company, so every company goes through a bad year, every one of them. So we plan for the best, try to save money, but you're going to run into a bad spout. And so you're going to have people are going to make some major claims. So this company's, they're on a hot streak for major claims. I don't know what's going on. Yeah, we talked to the employer. They don't know what's going on. They just know that these claims are coming, and they're coming in hot. So they get a 52% increase, right? Just dramatic, right? And not expecting. He's got 5 months to figure this out. And we need to figure it out too. So we're going through all this stuff, right? And so we're in the process of moving back to fully insured, away from the level funded, because that gave us the best rates. We are changing some of the plan profiles and the networks, but it's not going to hurt them in the area that the company is located. We've already done our due diligence on this, and it's going back to a carrier that all the employees wanted anyway. So, but it reduced it from a 52% to 22% increase. 22% is still high, so don't get me wrong, but it's still a lot better than 52%. So it's a little bit easier to chew, if you want to call it that. So it was definitely a bad year, right? But even if you took that out and you're still paying the extra 22% increase, right? It's still close to $250,000 in savings over a 6-7 year period, right? So you're talking about at least $30,000 a year in savings, and that doesn't even count for inflation dollars or anything. That's just raw numbers. And so they're still ahead of the game. Sure, did they have a bad year? Yeah. We're just the messenger. We're just trying to plan accordingly. But these are things that you have to talk about. It's like the same reason when you buy a homeowner's insurance. People are very passive about homeowners insurance because it's like, oh, the bank requires it. Yeah, we probably need it just in case something happens. But I tell you what, you have a different viewpoint when your house goes up in flames. You're going to find out things that you took for granted. There's things that you didn't mention. There's things that you now want it for the second time in case it happens again. Well, this is what we're planning for in this scenario, right? And so this was all possible because we brought the accountant in the room to look at the numbers. He was confident in the beginning and said, oh yeah, I'm looking at these numbers. They look good. Let's move, right? And so even 6 years later, we're having this meeting, and the accountant's still confident because of the number of years of savings, and he's like, all right, we'll stomach this, and we're going to do okay. Next year, it's going to go back to normal, or the following year, right? Whatever the cycle is. An accountant in the room helped us with the numbers, and then 6 years later, they're still confident in their decision of how we and why we did something. And so businesses all over the country need to start doing things like this. And if we fast forward a few more years, right, to get to 10 years, this company is going to be ahead of the trend by at least $500,000 in total compared to if we stayed right where we're at and we just increased the plan deductible with the same carrier. So it doesn't get us anywhere. In this case, it did, right? So you figure even if it, in this case, it maybe averaged $50,000 a year in savings. Any business listening to this, go next door, knock on your neighbor's door, your business neighbor, and ask them, did you get $50,000 a year in savings over the last 10 years? And if you didn't, my guess is they didn't. And if they didn't, they need to call somebody and get a second opinion. But in 2025, you need that second opinion. You need to look at it from a different angle. You need to make better decisions and bring your CFO in the room and the accountant, right? You have to get away from past beliefs and start looking at things in a different perspective, right? The broker's probably going to get uncomfortable. And if they're not, even better, right? But get that second opinion. I would say call around, get some other options. You can call us and we'll give you that second opinion as well.